I guess સેકન્ડ મીટમાં અમે નહીં દેખાય. તારે પિન કરવું પડશે ને ખાલી પ્રેઝન્ટેશન. मैं दूँ.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, sir. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Also, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. It's my privilege to address you all on behalf of the entire team of CSI. I'm Namsuk Putra. I'm the Management Executive of CSI DDU.
And I'm Nikhil Goswami, Social Media and PRN. We welcome you all to this event. Before we start the session, ensure you have a good internet connection. Also, if you have any questions during the session, please type them in the chat section. We will have time for the same at the end. I would request all of you to maintain silence and decorum throughout the session. Any kind of unwanted nuisance will not be tolerated and will lead to serious consequences. And if you face any voice lag, then do let us know in the chat section. So, without taking much of your time, let us begin. In this plot, we will be hosting a series of events every weekend and invite personalities who have achieved something extraordinary for once being this same stage as us all. In the second episode of our event, we have with us Nachiket Mehta, sir, who is a head of E2E data engineering at Wayfair and an IT graduate from batch 2004. Sir has also completed his master's in computer science from Northeastern University in 2007. So, hello, sir. It's great to have you. We are fortunate enough to have you at our event. Can you brief out about your 4 years of journey in DDU?
Sorry, I missed the last part. Uh,
Sir, can you brief out about your 4 years of journey in DDU?
sure. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here. It's good turnaround here. Almost 70 folks here. So great. Happy to be here. My 4 years of journey at DDIT. At that time, it was DDIT, not DDU. Uh,
Yes.
So I started in BE electronic communication when I joined, and then I switched over to IT at that time because that was on number one. And like after first year, decided to make a shift. But it was overall great journey. Made a lot of good friends, which we are still friends here, um, and a lot of new activities, extracurricular activities we did. I don't know if you guys still have all the culture committee and everything, but we were very active. I was part of a steering committee member of the culture committee, and did a lot of like this confluence and resonance and all these different activities across different departments. So that's more on extracurricular activities related to the this education. Um, it since beginning I was very interested in the data field, and at that time data mining and neural networks and all that were newly introduced. Our I don't know if you guys know, but Vij sir was there. He was the head of IT, and he introduced a lot of this new innovative courses, which were elective courses at that time. uh, so we elected, I personally liked that and elected into that, and since then my data career began. um, I since after I graduated, and at least my co-op of like a last internship, I did it in Reliance, in Surat, Hazira, which was also a good project that solidified my interest in the data analytics field, and gained a lot of good experience, which helped me specialize further into masters. Like when I came to US at Boston at Northeastern University, which had a very good co-op program. So I did my master's in computer science there to continue specializing further into data and analytics. And that's where the journey began. I'm happy to share more about the work experience, and as you guys have many questions.
Yes, thank you.
That's quite interesting, sir. So, you have also done your master's in computer science from Northeastern University. Can you
Yep.
share your 2 years of experience there and what differences in education did you face when you attended NU?
Yeah, so generally education in US and India, at least at my time, and things have evolved a lot, right? Almost 17 years have passed. But at that time, our Indian education or DDU education was a lot of theory based, theoretical. There were lab sessions and all that, but not as much. Versus in the Northeastern or in general education in US was a lot of practical lab based assignment based. You don't have to read a lot of books and kind of memorize a lot of things in the books, right? It's more practical application. So how you perform in projects and a lot of exams in those master's years were around multiple selection objectives. So you don't have to write long essays to answer certain things. Like you need to know the concepts. That's what matters really at the end of the day. And that could be a tricky question. There were some courses which had open book exams. I don't know if you guys have open book now, but you feel free to bring your books and just be in the exam. But that's different, right? Like you were like, oh, it's considered cheating. Many people who try cheat sheets and all that in India, but it's just like how you have gathered your concepts, right? And reading through the book at that time, memorizing the book was not that important. What it was important is how you are paying attention and how you are consuming the concepts of the subject that you are studying. So that was very good and differentiating in a way. And and I think a lot of group projects. So there were instances where I was working with folks not only from my batch but also seniors, because there are like courses that you take across different semesters. So that could be my seniors who are taking the same course with me on a given semester. So that way you also get exposure to somebody who is more experienced from you. And then there are folks like who does masters, like typically in the bachelor's, you complete your 10+2 and then you go to bachelor's, right? You don't have work experience in the middle. Masters, obviously you have people who have come directly from bachelor's to master's like me with very minimal experience at that time. But there were also folks with like already 10, 15 years of work experience in the field, and they were also taking the courses. So you learn a lot from their experiences and how you're going to be contributing to the real world in the work matters a lot compared to what you learn from theory, from books and college education-based applications.
So, you have been part of many clubs during your time at in the universities. How does that help you in your journeys?
Good question. Yeah. So networking matters a lot, no matter where you go, right? You need to build your network, and that was primary factor to build and grow my network. Coming here in Northeastern at that time, I did not know anyone when I came here. Nobody from friends or family. There was a friend who was supposed to join me at Northeastern at that time, but last minute something happened, so he decided to go to Chicago in Illinois, IIT. So it was a lot of overwhelming experience at the beginning, but then slowly you get used to it. You start making friends, some connections back to our land where we came from. So you start feeling comfortable, right? You make good friends, and then other friends from Bombay, and then like that grows further into like more Indian friends, and then slowly into non-Indian friends, kind of thing. So that just boosts your confidence, and then you start getting engaged into this kind of extracurricular groups. And there were not all extracurricular. I mean, there was one thing where I was working with my computer science professor. So I was part of that education, like admission committee. So there are, for all the folks who apply for advanced degrees like masters from India or any other countries, it goes through this. You have to send your SOP and your resume and all your like essays and all that sort of stuff, right? Your TOEFL scores and all that, transcripts and all. So typically they have the student representative just to diversify that admission process. So there were 4 or 5 professors who makes that decision, but there is one student representative. So I was fortunate enough to be elected by my fellow students. So it's election based, and I was sitting with them on that interview process. So I was able to screen a lot of resumes. Give me 1 second, my daughter is, sorry.
No issue there.
Yeah, sorry about that. So So that helped a lot, right? So to understand what professors and what education, um, like all universities and all, what they are looking for from candidates, right? To give them admission or reject their admission. And it always goes through two-step process, where there is first application reviewed by a professor, then second by me, or first by me and the second by professor. So it's not always one-sided. So that was a good experience. And then there was also other, similar to DDU experience of culture committee. There was a similar culture committee related stuff here, that so we had like Indian student organization. So we used to do a lot of like dance and fashion show and all those performances, just to kind of get everyone connected and feel them comfortable. And then I think another one was any new students who come, they go through the same experience that I did. So how we can avoid that friction and that overwhelming experience, right? So we were helping them with accommodation when they come here, and what to look for in terms of getting scholarship, and whom to reach out, and just help build their network in general. So there are like some things which I learned from my experience and try to contribute back to the community, back to our folks. So that was helpful a lot, right? That boosts your confidence, and then that adds on your resume as well.
Sir, talking about networking, can you suggest some ideas to our participants on how to build a good network? LinkedIn and email culture to improve networks, sir. Cold
Yeah.
emailing.
Yeah, it's sometimes it comes naturally. Sometimes you have to read books and consume the concepts, but always think in the interest of others, right? What, like, you cannot just keep cold emailing or reach out to somebody for your interest. You have to offer something in return. So it's always good to be curious about the other person, like what they are working on, like what their pain points are. Try to understand that first, and then offer from your experience and your network how you can help them. Once you start that gate where they can trust you, then it becomes easy when you can ask something in return. Many times folks ask like, hey, I'm interested in so and so, I see you have that experience, how can I get something out of you? Most of the time you're looking to get something out of person who have grown in their career, and they have a lot of experience, and they have got busy, right? They have a lot of priorities professionally, personally, and in general. So you need to offer something in return instead of continuously taking time, because then it may work well, right? If you are going by a common connection, you get the introduction, you get the first foot in the door, but how you continue that matters the most as well. So that's where you need to continuously offer something in return, and that you build the natural connection, right? And then talk about not just that specific subject, but also other aspects around that, right? Build a personal connection, identify some common hobbies, common passion, and also build connection on that. You never know, like you could partner with them for a new venture that they want to invest in and you are very passionate about. So yeah, that's one thing I would say.
Sure, so that's quite interesting to know. Sir, can you tell us like how you got started into this data science or data warehousing field? Like what was the starting point?
Yeah. So very early starting point was when I did my internship on Reliance. Like after, like I mentioned, the data mining course was addressed, and that's where I was very interested in. I love the not just the theoretical aspect of it, but the practical aspect of it. And then when I really worked hands-on at Reliance and built this project, which was productionalized in Reliance, we built this online like survey management system that was used by like 35 departments across Reliance industry, and it's still being used by everyone. So you see that you will build something that's been very useful by all the employees internally. And that was, I think, we received one of the highest marks, the percentage at that point. So that was a great booster. And then my journey, like at that time, data science wasn't there. Data science is more recent term, right? It was more data warehousing, really. That was the main term. So Then when I came for masters, there were mandatory courses and there were electives, and I made sure that I pick those elective courses that are data focused. So I wanted to specialize further into that. And obviously worked on the projects and identified my co-op opportunity within Northeastern that is more data focused. So that helped me continue specializing further in that journey. So my first experience, the real work experience, even in US, that I worked at Serono or EMD Serono at that time, was a data warehousing intern. Right, so that's where I learned a lot within the US market, within the US industry, ETL and all the aspects. I never used Informatica at that time before, but I learned it on the job, right? And then data analysis and a lot of mess that data brings. A lot of that experience was learned, and I got a good mentor. My manager, he was somebody who had already had like 15, 20 years experience in the data field. So I used those network or connection, build that, but learned a lot on the job. I was at some point given open field, greenfield initial project saying like, you have identified a lot of gaps in the data. You go ahead and propose solution, and you build however you want to kind of do it. And that's the beauty of internships here, right? People like, they are only for a short time. You're paying very less hourly to them, and whatever you can get out of that talent compared to the full-time employees, that's a bonus for them. So that helped a lot, just an open field. And then after I graduated, my first job was also data warehouse developer. And that's where I continued building ETL tools and worked for multiple clients within the digital marketing space at that time. So continued learning more tools, not just in the ETL space, but before and after. So that's where the journey started. Happy to share how it evolved from data warehouse into big data and into analytics.
Okay, so generally speaking, initial step is always difficult. So can you share your experience of how you landed your first job? Like you said that you were data warehouse developer. So have you landed your first job and how it was to enter the industry for the first time?
Yeah. So I was fortunate, and that's one advice I would give. Like, don't just go to university for the sake of it. I'll study their how they are ranked. And one of the things I did, and I was fortunate, I did not know the impact that it would yield for Northeastern, but Northeastern had a very good co-op program. And the co-op placement success for the computer science specifically was 100%. So they had a dedicated career dev department which worked with us before we graduate to help us identify like how to talk in the interviews, like how to build your resume. So they built a resume by working closely with me and provided that guidance, right? And then how you should dress up and how you should talk to interview, and a lot of those things were taught. So I would say I didn't do anything special to land that first job, except that I said I want the job in this field, right? I had that clarity. Many of my friends, I think I was one of the only few ones in my friends network or the classmates network who started journey in the data space. Everyone else got a job in the full stack, like software engineering area. So a bunch of interviews were scheduled with the on-campus campus fair coming in. So a lot of that, I think DDU has the same thing, but I had multiple options to choose from, and I selected that. Yeah, and then they are paid internships, paid co-ops, right? So unlike in India in DDU, you go with the nice like more popular name or whatever. Here they are like pay matters, and there was some other opportunity that was paying higher hourly than what I picked, but at least I went with my passion. And that helped a lot, right? If I would have gone into something where I would have struggled to perform, wouldn't have helped a lot. So that's how I landed in EMD Serono for that data warehouse intern position, which was a paid internship. And like I mentioned, the journey started.
Sure, sir. Nice. Sir, Can you tell us how important it is for recent graduate to have a machine learning experience? Like, if not a proper internship, do companies expect to have done some kind of projects by themselves?
Yeah, it is always good to have the knowledge. Many times, if you can find and put on your resume more real practical problems that you have solved using that, not just theoretical, like you have taken machine learning courses and you did so and so project, but how that project yielded what results, that's very helpful. Along with the machine learning, if you also have data engineering experience, I think that helps a lot, because many times 80%, there are stats out there where 80% of the work that data science team does is to clean the data, to prepare the data, to organize the data before they can start building models and machine learning algorithms. So that is a big pain point, and many times you may land an initial job, but initial job you are very fresh, right? So you should be open to working and knowing and learning a lot of the things that comes in your way. Don't be picky that I only want to go in the machine learning field and I would ignore the data engineering aspect of it or the business analytics aspect of it. So that's important. Knowing what open source tools and technologies are always helpful, because if you apply a certain tech and now you have limited your resume to only that specific technology, now you have limited your options to go into some to certain companies who are not using them, right, or using them. So that's always helpful. So it's good to have a diversified experience. And one thing I would say, and I've said, which is not always like publicized in a way, but cater your resume according to job description that you are applying for. So don't keep just one resume and apply it to like 10, 15, 100 different companies. Understand what their job descriptions are, identify what they are looking for, and create your resume. Save it in a folder with that company name, and remember that this is the resume you applied for this company. Again, I'm not saying like lie, right? Put incorrect things based on that job description. But if you have gathered those like diversified experience that ranges from data engineering to machine learning to predictive analytics and all that, it's good to specialize, maybe add more bullet points related to that job description, but still keep the other bullet points that talks about your diversified experience. So that's always helpful.
Thank you, sir. According to your experience, which are the necessary skills required to kickstart a career in data analytics field?
It's basic without naming any specific languages or skills. One, obviously SQL, some flavor of SQL, right? That's must in all data. One, good hands-on strong experience in a programming language. It could be Python, Java, Scala, Spark, anything, right? And then some machine learning, data science specific analytics, like algorithm related experience, like which may overlap with Python or R type of things. But that's if we want to specialize into the machine learning analytics side of things. I think that's helpful. Knowing more algorithms are always helpful, and how you solve what problems for what algorithms. Helpful. So that's general answer. There are tools out there. Oh yeah, one other thing. Having cloud experience. Now all companies, everything is moving to cloud, right? So even though there is open source knowledge that I mentioned, but just understanding how things work infrastructure wise in the cloud, how compute and storage are separated, and how decoupled systems can be leveraged. I think that's always helpful. All companies nowadays are looking for some cloud experience. So if you are stuck, and data space has evolved a lot, right? Like I mentioned, starting the journey with that pure ETL and then data warehousing, where there are a bunch of like Informatica like tools available, and then things were more moved to Hadoop, big data ecosystem, and then slowly people were like Hadoop was a buzzword and a most popular, and then before you know it, everything was moved to cloud, right? And then there is a cloud analytics. A lot of this service based, microservice based technologies have come and taken over. So always be agile, nimble to adapt to new things. But that's some of the tech or the categories of tech, I would say.
Quite interesting to know. So apart from technical skills, what are the soft skills required to guide in this field?
Good question. Yeah. So soft skills, ability to solve problems no matter what. Identify. Don't be stuck on one way of solving a problem. Always step back, look at the big picture, what business problem you are trying to solve with the technology, and focus on that. So it's very important to every now and then like step back, strategically think what problem you are solving, and then you'll have more than one hows, like how as in like typically it's a w's, right? Like, so what problem you are solving, why you are solving it, and how you are solving it. And what and why remain static, and how there are more than one hows that you can solve it by. But sometimes when you are solving a problem with one specific thing, you go much deeper into that. So that's very important skill to develop, looking at the big picture and solving the problem. uh, and then just identifying the network thing I mentioned, right? How, where you are making an impact by solving that problem. Connect directly with those stakeholders, right? Try not to go where layers, but understand the business problem directly from the stakeholder. That will give you a lot more insight rather than a communication that's coming multiple layers to you. Uh, and I mentioned communication, but communication is very important aspect of it, whether it's a written communication or effectively building a summary of your presentation and presenting that to the stakeholders.
Thanks for the advice, sir. What was the biggest learning from the early stages of your career, and how did it help you to excel in your career, sir? Biggest learning
Uh,
moment.
Biggest learning moment technology wise, or like can you
So
specify
in
it?
general, sir.
Um, yeah, I can't pinpoint one. I mean, I'm a learner. I always learn throughout journey. If I feel that I have stopped learning, that's a very big no negative for me where I have to reset. Biggest learning was really somewhat what I just mentioned, right? Understanding the big picture and translating the problem in terms of the business impact is very important. I got a very good positive feedback when I was trying to do it, and maybe not out of like a clear intention of doing it, but maybe because I was never a very good programmer myself. uh, I'm not somebody who will say, oh, look at his code and this is like one of the best codes written. I was never that. I Because of my that other like extracurricular and leadership experiences and all that, I always wanted to understand how it impacts the end users and what problem I'm solving and all that, and then figuring out an easier way to solve that problem and not like most innovative way to solve the problem. So that helped me a lot, and as I continued to do more and more, uh, and I received feedback directly from the business stakeholders, I felt that okay, that's a good skills I have learned or shaped my career to go into that eventually. So and that also helped me go into more leadership positions much faster in my career instead of being in more individual contributor type of role. Uh, that was out of my personal choice, right? I wanted to be more on the management, more on the leadership side than individual contributor.
That's very interesting to know, sir. So sometimes there is a trade-off between the deadline of a particular project and the quality of work. So how do you overcome this kind of challenges to achieve the best possible outcome?
Yeah, communication. It's the best answer to this kind of trade-offs you have to make, right? There is with any project there are typically few variables that you can play around. There is a scope, there is a personnel, like a total number of resources, or there is timeline. In order to meet a project successfully, you need to have these three. Now, if scope is increased, you need to adjust the resources or the timeline. If you don't do it, you can't deliver. Same way, if you lose somebody from resources point of view and your scope remains the same, your timeline remains the same, still you can't deliver. And same way, your timeline is pushed for any reason or shrunk for any reason, you have to increase your resources or reduce your scope to meet it. So that's the recipe. And if you feel risk management and risk avoidance is very important in any project management aspect. So sooner you find that out and sooner you communicate that to your stakeholders is helpful, and justify, right, what changed, right, whether the scope changed, like your understanding of the scope change, or something happened on a personnel. If it's an individual who's working on it and maybe you identified you won't be able to commit to that many hours that you anticipated, or the level of effort has increased or whatever, but communicate. Sooner you communicate, better it is to manage that expectation.
Thank you, sir. Now that we know how to tackle the trade-off, sir, I saw your portfolio and you have been part of telecom industry, biotech, media and info services, and also e-commerce industry. How it's been difficult for you while working at different industries out there? I think that is a super interesting to talk about.
Yeah, it was always difficult when you start working on a new client or a new industry, right, where you don't know much about it. And I continue to face the same even in my current job, right? I always had experience with digital marketing space because that's where one of like data and analytics is most advanced into digital marketing. And then finance or e-commerce. And even though I landed job at Wayfair, which was it is an e-commerce technology company, but the position or the job that I had was within the supply chain domain, and I never had experience with the supply chain industry at all. So it's always difficult initially to learn new industry and new business, but it's also challenging and interesting to learn new business, right? So instead of diving directly into technology and solving the problem that is asked of you with your previous bias from other industry and how you have solved it, spend more time early in the phase to understand, to work directly with the business, to ask for good documentation, meet with somebody, say, hey, can I get some time, like, to go through these concepts with me? And there are some onboarding documents that are available, so you can ask for onboarding documents instead of getting somebody's time. But you can also, like I was earlier saying, offer something in return and then get something in return. And this could be something that you get in return. Like you talk to your business counterpart and saying, hey, I'm working on this project that will help you with this so-and-so deliverables, but I need to understand this business concepts better. And can we have some time to it? So, and they are very open, right? New hire onboarding or anyone who is new, people is always willing to help. So that's very helpful. So yeah, I would say that. And then as you are learning, document your learning. Create, if there was no good onboarding documents available to you, create one so that other folks who are following you would benefit from that. And then you will get recognition for that. You are setting your own legacy as you are growing further in your life.
It's quite fascinating to know that you have been part of so many industries. Now, so can you share your opinion, like how data analytics and big data can boost companies' revenue?
Yeah, a lot. I think many companies have like C-level positions now, chief data officer or CIO, like it used to be CIO or CTO, but you will see that they have CTO, they have CIO, and they have chief data officer as well. So everyone understands that data is that thermostat to operate successfully. There are a lot of instances. So most of the companies and executives build KPIs. So any good company who is data driven they, before they start a new business concept or a business idea or build a vision and strategy around anything, they first thing they come up with is a KPI, key performance indicator, how they'll measure the success of that initiative. And each of those KPIs are translated into certain data elements that you will need to deliver those KPIs. And those KPIs are measured on a weekly basis through this weekly business review or monthly business review or even quarterly business reviews with the board of directors and executives, right? So higher you go, less frequent those business reviews are, lower you go within that food chain, more tactical those decisions are, right? On the field, you want to see what's happening right now, today, tomorrow, so you can measure or adopt accordingly. But higher you go from director level to the higher level, they want to understand strategically how is their business is performing week over week, so that they can tweak some knobs to make certain strategic changes that may involve process or people or technology, right? So KPIs are embedded in all stages of this journey, from quarterly business review or board of directors to the lowest level of how they are performing, how many visitors they are getting on their website, and are those visitors going down because they deployed some change to their website or some code, or within on the supply chain, how many orders are coming in, and how are we performing, how long it takes to for an order to go from order to ship to delivery. And there are KPIs measured where order to ship is this much for a week, and then week over week comparison, it's going high or it's going low. And same way, delivery rate, our average time span to deliver to a customer after they places an order is 2 days. And we are making certain strategic decisions, and it's going into now 1.5 day. And our KPI, our target is to deliver on the same day. What can we do? What are those key indicators that helps us getting to that goal, right? And there are, each KPIs have further drill down, so you can keep drilling down into those and identify different data points that help you make your business successful.
Okay, sir. Sir, you have led teams to your journey in the CSG, Quiro, and now in Wayfair. Can you tell us how the role changes as you climb up the corporate ladder?
Yeah. So role changes. I mean, you always start with individual contributor, right? Even if you will study MBA or go to business school after your technology degree and you get your first job, nobody would trust you to start in a management leadership role unless you have a proven experience of knowing what your team members, your employees are going through, right? So you first have to live through that journey and understand what are the pain points, solve those problems one problem after another, build your reputation, um, work on projects that are bigger and bigger scale eventually, right? And that's where you start as an individual contributor taking who is given a problem statement and maybe even a solution, right? So at a level one, right? So we have this defined career path that, so I can talk in terms of that. At level one, you are given a solution, you just have to deliver. Then level two is somebody who you are given a problem statement and you have to find a solution and deliver. Level three, you are given an objective and you have to find what are the problem statements and what could be the solutions. You either deliver those solutions yourself or delegate to other junior developers who can deliver the solution and you mentor them. Level four, you are given a strategy and you come up with those objectives and problem statements and solution and delivery aspect. And then as you go higher and higher, you are given a vision, just a blank state that this is what we want to be at. And you define how many team members you'll need, what problems you'll solve, how you'll solve, what the architecture looks like, a lot of those area. So that's a general recipe. From my experience point of view, I started as a developer, like an intern, then into a developer, then into a lead developer who was leading multiple projects and delegating work to other developers and helping them grow further. And And then like I said, I was always interested in going more on the management leadership side. So I had open conversation with my managers at that time saying, I want to go more on the management side and manage projects. So give me opportunities that are related to that. So project management type of opportunities and leading the project directly with the stakeholder or client at that time, and proving that, right? Proving that for just one project is not enough. You have to continue to do that for few more projects, or over the span of many months or years sometimes. And that's how you build your trust, you build your reputation, and people feel that yes, you need to give him more horsepower, more people to deliver, because you can trust, you have built your reputation that way. So that's how, like, I started my management journey with, I think first I had 3 people under me as when I started as a manager. And then it grew in that same company, it grew to 10, and then it grew to 15. And then I ended up building a team in India, because that time we were going through some cost evaluation and things like that. And the cost of hiring somebody in US compared to in India was 1/6 in a way. So we started identify that. So that's where strategy and vision comes in, right? Like, it was difficult to find somebody in US, and now you have to build a team in India, but nobody from US knows whom to contact and all that sort of stuff, right? So we started building that team, and that team initially we did not hire very good developers and individuals. They had performance issues and all that. So you learn from that, and then you hire good candidates who can kind of delegate and hire good quality from their own network. And that's where, like, it eventually became successful offshore operation. And your role, as you hire more and more people who can do more hands-on work, you kind of continue to go up to focus on those vision and strategy aspect of the problem solving. So that's how it works. I mean, and it continues to go. The problem, if you continue to grow higher for the sake of going higher, but underneath you there are delivery issues where you haven't solved that solution and problem, that meant you won't be able to go higher, right? So you still have to make sure what are the problems, build enough documentation and a culture around it, so that you are passing. You are not the only single point of failure, but you are building many folks like you who can deliver on the ground while you focus on some other problems.
It's quite fascinating to know. The data analytics has become such an important part in industry. So where do you see this data analytics industry going in the future, and what are the future scopes and opportunities within it?
Yeah, right. There's a lot of scope, right? I think we see data has been growing. Like, there used to be just all the data warehouse and everything used to be in gigabytes. Like, data warehouses were in like SQL Server, and then Oracle, and then that was not enough, and Hadoop and all that came, right? And then from gigabytes to terabytes and petabytes and kata. Now there's not enough data, right? Every step of the engineering application, it's capturing some data, whether structured or unstructured data, and there's a lot of analytics, machine learning point of view that needs to be built. So there are a lot of great transition and use cases that people haven't solved yet. There are only like top 2% or max 10% companies in the world who have really made good use of data right now so far. There is still that 90% who is still struggling to get into that data and analytics space. They claim that they are in that space, but they cannot make insights out of the data they have as effectively as those top companies do today. So there's a lot of opportunity in that area. There's a lot of automation that needs to happen. There's still a lot of manual time spent in crunching the data engineering aspect, right? Where like machine learning and analytics is as powerful and as automated only if the data that's coming in is clean and trustworthy, right? And so that part of the problem hasn't been solved effectively yet. There are a lot of companies and services, and even these cloud providers have come up with this data automation tools and all that. But still, it's not. There is an opportunity to even build machine learning aspect within them, so the data quality can be improved automatically as you are crunching and organizing data. So that's a lot of opportunities in that area. There's this whole batch data processing versus real-time data processing notion, and it's just like very fresh. Real-time event-driven data processing is much newer, like last 2 years maybe. So it's very in an infant stage right now. So a lot of things with the telemetry data and event-driven data would make all this analytics much faster. You are doing something right now, and you will instantly get the offer, like marketing wise, you will get some insights on you. Currently, this still takes a week or days to get some promotional emails or to get some offers, or to identify some insights on the business. That needs to be reduced from that weekly to daily to hourly to instant in many instances.
Thank you, sir. Now, going off topic, since you shared your interest in learning, so can you share the kinds of books or articles you prefer to read and how they had an impact on your life?
Yeah, good. I'll share both. I think technology and non-tech side of things. Non-tech or business side of things, reading books or blogs are always helpful, and I'm particularly very much interested in career growth, career development related books, right? So, and you guys may have, like, look at all the top sellers, like Dale Carnegie books on how to win friends and influence people. That like really affects you, how you build your network and all the personal soft skills development. Or it could be what success, how successful people think and how you manage. There's also all money aspect of it, right? As you grow and you have a lot of money, rich dad, poor dad, and a lot of those things which help you manage uh, your personal and career aspect of it without specific technology aspect of it. So great. And there are forms, right? You have ebooks or audiobooks if you don't get time to buy the books and read them. There's also a website called PDF Drive, uh, that has a lot of like these books that are freely available, that you can download. You don't have to pay. uh, on the technology side, many times blogs are more helpful than books nowadays. I mean, especially after you graduate, really, right? Within graduation, you are given books or things like practical sessions. But continue to learn, right? Whether identify somebody who is doing something innovative in your space, follow their blogs, follow their YouTube channels, follow their LinkedIn profile, because there is a lot of posts happening on that, and that will help you understand the new latest technology trends. Attending conferences are also very good. They are usually very much innovative and the next gen. Like a lot of things that big company conferences that they show is very much work that it's in progress, or it will be released soon, and it takes at least 2 to 5 years for that to become a norm, right? So if you attend conferences, you'll be able to learn a lot of things upfront before it becomes common to general public. So
So,
attending meetups and things like that are all also.
so according to your opinion, which are the books do you recommend which one should read in their early 20s, like that can make a huge impact further down the line?
Yeah, some of the books that I mentioned, I can open my library and recommend all the books that I have read or in my to do list. Really, give me 1 second. Some of them I mentioned already, but I'll include more. Yeah, so I mentioned Dale Carnegie books, right? How to Win Friends, Influence People, and he has a couple of other books. There is How Successful People Think. There is Uh, Let me see. I'm just going through my list. Product management aspect, if you are like interested in like just exploring the business side of things, and beyond technology, there are good books on lean model uh, and all. There is also a very good book of the 5 second rule that transforms your life. Seven habits of highly effective people. uh, say rich dad poor dad I mentioned. um, Also, I mean, read biographies, right? Many times a lot of successful people, and reading their biographies helps you a lot on how they were thinking, how they tackle the problems, and things like that. So there are a lot of, and even there are a lot of books by Indian authors. I have Connect the Dots, which had multiple stories of multiple entrepreneurs within India when the India was going through this transformation 10, 20 years back. So a lot of book, there is a series, Chanakya book series. So that's also very good. Like it applies a lot of Chanakya Niti into like corporate life and into personal, professional life, like how you can manage using that.
So, sir, it is a general belief that soon AI will take over several jobs in the sectors like web dev, application building, etc. And lots of software engineers eventually will lose their jobs. What is your take on this? And should the students now be learning web dev and stuff, or should they go for safer things that cannot be replaced by AI?
So I missed the first part. Who will replace the software?
Sir, machine learning and artificial intelligence,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
automation.
I Yeah, so I don't think so. I think software engineers and data engineers and data analytics is in the higher demand than ever. Uh, so if you continue specialize in that field, I don't think I mean, I can't predict the future 50 years down the line, right? But all those softwares, the AI and ML to operate successfully, you need the developers and the supports who will be building them and supporting them. So if you should be worried if you are not in an engineering field or not in the technology field. Yes, you should be worried to lose your job uh, with that, because a lot of those on the field laborious jobs are being automated. But if you are in that field who is building AI, ML, data engineering aspect, that is not going away, at least in near to midterm future, because that's where the opportunities are. Today, like I can talk to you from like US market point of view, and there are lots and lots of jobs out there who are paying a lot of good increments to individuals to change their job. And now they are, with pandemic, they are offering full-time remote flexibility. So there's a lot of supply and demand crunch going on, and there are not enough talent in the market compared to the opportunities that are out there. So that gap needs to be filled. It's not going away anytime soon.
That's quite fascinating. So, can you share your experience living in US and also something that you miss about India?
Yeah, experience living in US. When I came here, like I said initially, I did not know anyone, right? And then I had my dad's friend who helped me, like in New York, not in Boston, and that's where I stayed. And I researched where would I stay in Boston, and who would I contact. A lot of those areas where I did not know anyone in Boston at that time. So I found some second, third level connections to say, hey, I'm so and so. I got your name from so, and I need accommodation in Boston. Can we? So I, with the help of a family friend, I made a trip. So before that, I kind of shortlisted all the places that I would visit, and and then I made a trip to Boston, visited all those places, decided where I would stay. It was a basement apartment, so completely dark, no matter it's a day or night. I lived there for 8 months, and then Northeastern, I was fortunate that I could. It's easy to get on-campus jobs. I know many other universities where like people had to work off campus into grocery stores or gas stations and things like that. So I never had to work off campus. for cash illegally. So that helped a lot. I was doing night shifts because night shifts was paying higher hourly rate than the day shifts. So this was this dorm. So Northeastern had like this 30 something dorms, and you work as a proctor in a dorm. So you sit at the front reception desk, and when every students come in, you have to swipe their cards and make sure they leave in the dorm and let them in. So you press the buzzer, they go in, and if they bring guests, you have to write their names and things like that. So night shift wasn't as busy, but on Thursday, Friday, weekend nights, it was crazy because people go to party and get busted, and then like there's a lot of scene, you have to call the cops and a lot of those things, right? So for first year, I never saw, or I hardly saw sun, because I used to work night shift. I come home, sleep in the morning, like until late afternoon. And I came here in spring, which was winter. And in the winter, at least in Boston, it gets dark by 4, 3 or 3:30, 4, 5 by 5. So it gets dark. Sun sets early because of the time zone difference, the daylight saving and all that. So for first good 6 months, I was mostly living in the dark because I was living in the basement. Even if when I wake up in the afternoon, it was dark. And then evening classes. My classes used to be 6 to 9. So wake up, evening classes, food and all. I was living. I never cooked in my life before coming to US. And I remember I was washing dishes, and my roommates used to cook. And at that time, there were not many Indian grocery stores around as well. So we used to buy tortilla and not roti. Right nowadays, you find frozen rotis and homemade rotis and all that. That time, no rotis. So tortilla, you make tortilla on the gas, and that becomes like papad. And then my roommate, who was one of the worst cook ever, he used to make rajma in the water. So in the water, we had to find rajma with that papad and all. So that was life. So I used to get a lot of courier or snacks from India when my parents and other family was feeling bad. But then I started learning cooking, and then like Indian grocery stores started popping up soon. So that became much easier. And then you also adopt to eating non-Indian food, really, right? So you said what you miss the most, still Indian food, you miss that. But there are a lot of good restaurants, a lot of good places where you'll find good food. Boston, not as much as like New York, Chicago, Bay Area kind of thing. There are still many Indian restaurants in Boston, a lot. It's just in my area, there are like at least 5 to 10. But still tough to find that good taste of Indian food in a selected restaurants. But that was that initial journey with like food and accommodation. But then I called like a couple of my friends from India from same college. They joined from DDIT and all. And then I moved on to another apartment. We became roommates. Like, so we were all like close friends. And that got better eventually. And then you also adapt to the new environment, right? You build that network, you build your friends, you feel comfortable and all that. So it got better and better. We changed many apartments from one lease to another in a way. But I'm fortunate, knock on the wood, like all this 5, 6 of our roommates that became best friends from Gujarat. We eventually, even after we got married and we have kids and everything, we made sure that we want to live together, and we found a place. We built new houses, right? So one of the American dreams to build your own house as you want. And we build houses in the same community, so we are neighbors now. So we are all living together. Our kids are best friends. When our parents comes from India, they are good friends with each other. So we have built our own like mini India community here now.
That was very fun to hear these experiences from you, sir. So now we will have a doubt session. Whoever wants to ask doubts to sir can type their questions in the chat section, or they can feel free to unmute themselves and ask. Already see 2, 3 questions in the chat section.
Right. You want me to read through questions and answer them?
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah. So I think first question is from Deep Patel. Can you share what are the learnings and work difference while working in startup versus big tech company? Yeah, good question. Yeah, working in a startup was very good, rewarding experience and especially early in my career, right? Where you are not bound to work on a specific tools or technologies. or as per your job profile or roles and responsibilities. There's no boundaries of job roles and responsibilities. You work on whatever things that are thrown at you, or whatever problem statements are out there, problems out there. So that's a positive side of startup. But versus the big tech company, there are a lot of uh, uh, boundaries placed between the groups, right? So you have to go through a lot of hoops and some political things and a good network to get the things done in a way. So that's the biggest difference. Cons wise, startup, depending on how the startup is, right? They're always going through some financial trouble. They have to prove them, versus big companies have already gone through that journey and they don't have to worry as much with that, right? So a fear of losing jobs, especially when you are on H1 or an immigration, like non-immigrant visa and things like that, that prevails in startup. Versus in big tech, you are in a safe zone, right? Your job security wise, it's better. Your company stability wise, it's better. So yeah, those are main differences. I was fortunate with the company, the startup that I worked with, that got acquired by a big company, but we were still working as a startup at that time within our own, like a small group. So it survived much longer, but eventually we started facing those financial burdens and all that, and people started leaving. I was one of the last ones, like holding the ship uh, before I decided to leave. So there were its own journey. You learn a lot from that, right? No matter what you do, you always focus on learning and getting new experiences. But that's major differences. Uh, Next question, and feel free to ask follow-up question if I did not answer your question properly. Next question from Mansi Kalaria is, if there is a choice between a startup and an MNC, what would you suggest to someone who is just starting their career? So I kind of answered this in the previous question, but I would say, if you don't have to worry about your job security and the immigration status like US, course I mentioned, but like in India, you want to kind of like think about it, I would say start with the startup. You will learn much more in a startup, uh, gain an experience, understand what you really like. Because many times when you graduate, you feel that you know what you like, what your passion is, and it's great if you really know that this is what your passion is, but you need to gain a on the field experience first. Startup gives you opportunity to try out different things. So start there, and then once you feel comfortable, no, I know pretty much what I want to do, and I either want to start my own thing or I want to go in the MNC for a better pay and all. And I don't think there's a pay difference much. Like if there's a good startup which is backed up by good VCs and all, they pay as good. So start with the startup and then MNC to further solidify your career. You learn certain aspects in big companies. There are a lot of processes in place that you won't find much in startup, right? You have to build, people or leaders have to build those processes. So at least, but if you are focused on technology, start with the startup and then go into bigger things for the better processes and orchestration. Right, more questions. Drashti Patel, what skills companies looking in person during data analytics interview? Like how data analytics job interview and in software engineering interview differ? Yeah, software engineering, I mean, it depends. The easy short answer is it depends. It varies by company to company. Many companies who don't have a rigorous interview rounds, they may hire in a couple of interview rounds. There are some companies, I mean, we speak to, in my experience, right? My previous company, Quero, it was a smaller company and we really needed people. So we didn't have to put a lot of rigor into our interview process to filter out many individuals, right? So you are lenient on that, like get whatever you have and then train them on the job and then identify how they are performing. Versus bigger companies, the more popular companies have a more structured interview process in place with like coding round and then behavioral round and multiple case study rounds and things like that. But your question specifically is on the difference between software engineering interview and data analytics job interview. It's it depends where the coding round is there. Both would have their own version or flavor of coding rounds, right? Software engineering would be on C, C++, Java, or any other tech, versus data analytics may be on SQL or Python type of testing. Uh, so overall process remains the same, but varies by different companies on how many rounds they have and what sort of thing they are looking for. There's always a behavior aspect that most company with good culture are looking for. So even though you are very good programmer and all that, but you are an A, uh, not a good person. I don't want to it's like here, but if you are a jerk, they won't hire you, right? So there's also a good soft skill aspect of it, behavioral culture fit aspect. Uh, Meet Kumar Patel, what is your opinion about how data analytics and big data can boost business revenue? I think I answered this question earlier. There are a lot of use cases, a lot of companies who are going more data driven, data focus, like chief data officers, working very closely with the C level or the C level counterparts to make sure that data acts as a thermostat, and uh, they solve the business problem. Like all the examples I mentioned from, like, any business initiatives are started with like KPIs, right? What are the key performance indicators and how you're measuring, and everything has to be data and analytics driven. Uh, Kush Manwar, can you share your lowest point, frustrating part of when you were doing a job? Yeah, good question. Uh, I I would answer. I mean, first thing comes to my mind, right? There may be many different frustrating part that I have experienced throughout, but first thing that comes to my mind is, there was a point in my career when I moved quickly from individual contributor to manager, manager to senior manager, and then I was stuck in senior manager for good, like, long time. I think 4 to 5 years. Uh, Partly because that company, like, I was holding the ship, like I mentioned, and I was very loyal to the company, and I did not care about my career first as much as I cared about company and how I can survive, like, company, how I can make sure we are in the better shape and we continue to grow and all that. I never had the conversations with my manager saying, like, hey, I feel static in my career, and what my career growth plan looks like. I came here quickly, and I probably felt too comfortable in that position. And there is a shift that needs to happen from that senior manager to director level, where you really have to think strategically instead of in the weeds to continuously solve the problem. And I probably didn't get chance or time or thoughts in at that time or during that part of my career uh, to think strategically, because we are going through a lot of firefighting day to day, months, weeks to months, to just survive. In a way. So that's not just one specific frustrating part at a time of a day kind of thing, but it lasted for a longer time. And part of the reason also was my personal life, where I was at a good comfort zone. I was, like, company, from learning point of view, I was stable. I had good control of my career, or the work that I was doing, and I was more focusing on my personal life when we were having baby and taking care of it. So I was in a comfort zone where, like, oh yeah, I'm getting good personal time, like work life balance is good. I can focus more on the personal life, and that's where, like, I started losing focus of the career in a way, right? Like what that career progression looks like when you are also thinking about family progression. So everyone goes through this kind of moment once in their career, maybe early or too late, but it's good to identify and continue to balance. And there's nothing wrong in it, right? It's one thing that's wrong, like, good that I identified that, yeah, I'm stuck, I'm stagnant in that part of the career, and now it's time to move on. I realized it when my daughter grew 1.5 year, and they're like, yeah, okay, now is the time when she's off to daycare or whatever, and now I can um, start focusing back on my career. So yeah. uh, Parangi Rathod, what are significant career opportunities in data analyst? Is there any particular position at companies for data analyst? Yeah, so there are lots of opportunities. I mean, I don't know when you mentioned data analyst, but there are different flavors of data positions. So data analyst or a business analyst is somebody who is much down in the spectrum, right? So the data spectrum, if I left to right, right? So left is you have to consume data, ingest data from the data sources, whether it's your internal engineering teams who is producing data via like transactional databases, OLTP to OLAP, or Kafka, where the event-driven data is coming out, or a PubSub. So there is that aspect and the data engineering aspect, like how you'll ingest the data. And there is more software, the combination of software engineering and data engineering involved in that. There is also a data engineering, in general, the data engineering role comes from two different flavors historically. There are ETL developers and data warehouse developers who go into more software data engineering focus. And there are also pure software engineers, Java developers, who go via Hadoop ecosystem into data engineering space. So that leftmost piece is more data ingestion, and then you have to cleanse, standardize, transform the data. And there are a lot of data engineering related work, data warehousing related work happening in there. And then there is also BI aspect of it, right? So if you are not a great programmer or don't enjoy doing a lot of coding in a way, BI, and you are much closer to the understanding the business and how what impact you are making, then once the data warehouse is built, they're still building the semantic layer and structuring and organizing the presentation layer, the semantic data and all, and doing the business intelligence via reporting, dashboarding, and all that. That area is more BI specialist involved. And so that's BI role. And there's data analyst who sits after that, where once the BI or the dashboards or the analytic models are built, they are constantly crunching data and understanding how the data is behaving, and there are any gaps in the data and that needs to be enhanced further. So that's a data analyst kind of role. So there's a business analyst, there is BI developer, BI engineer, there's a data warehouse, data engineer aspect of it, and there's that software engineer, data engineer aspect of it. And horizontally below this sits like the data science ML, because data science ML folks needs to get data, raw data from the sources, or sometimes they also need to get the curated or transformed data from data warehouses, or sometimes they just need to get the curated or completely cooked data for the reporting from the KPI to understand how they are behaving and what sort of models they can build to enhance them further. So there's that horizontal, they sit below that ML. And there's also two flavors of that. There is a data science modeling aspect who builds models and algorithms, and there is also engineering aspect, how you are productionalizing your ML models into production, not just experiments, but you are productionalizing those models. So ML developer and ML engineer. Let me just reread that question to make sure I answered it correctly. What are significant career opportunity data analyst at particular position companies for data analyst? Yeah. So there are lots of different positions related to all these things that I mentioned, just in the data space itself. The next question from Herschel Tank, how data analysis is important with respect to cybersecurity? Very important. Actually, there is a data governance aspect, and there is all this GDPR. I don't know if you guys have heard, but there's Europe had GDPR regulations, and within US there's California privacy regulations, and a lot of those things are prevalent, especially when you are processing personally identified information, PII data, right? Somebody's email, social security number, Aadhaar card number, and email addresses and phone number and address and all that. Those are very sensitive data, and there are regulations out there. If you don't follow them, the company get big fine for it. So all companies or big companies have to follow those guidelines and the privacy concerns, and secure that data, encrypt the data, store it behind the firewalls to address uh, those concerns. There are anonymous data like cookies and all that like sessions and visits and your behavioral data, how you're using certain products where certain applications may not be capturing your PII data, but just your behavioral data. It's okay to use it as long as you're not connecting, you're not using third party service that would connect that anonymous data to the personal PII data. There are services out there who would crunch through that unknown anonymous behavioral data and connect and tell you this is what that person is and this is what behavior is. But there's data governance, data security aspect built in all the data applications in corporates. Next question for Murtaza. Mr. Did you plan from the beginning that you would be doing your master's in data science, or did you realize your interest during your bachelor's or during your internship and then decide to move into future deep into data? Yeah, no, I did not plan from the beginning. I had an interest into data from the beginning, but I did not decide that I'll be doing my master's in this space. In fact, I did not do my master's in data science. I did my master's MS in computer science. This was more generic. And I had, like I mentioned, I was the only one after I graduated and found my co op. I was the only one in my network, at least, who found a data specific job compared to others who were more in the full stack software engineer type of job. We all graduated from computer science, which was much generic computer science field. So I did not specialize into data science or knew that I want to do that. However, because my interest was on that, I selected the courses accordingly. I selected my first job accordingly. And many times your first job defines your career. It's difficult to change your career from your first job or first few years of experience into something else, unless you really hate that thing and then you are willing to kind of start from scratch or a couple of years or before your career in a way. Yeah, so that's the journey or answer to that question. Next one, Mit Kumar Patel, is doing masters necessary to get a job in data analytics or in big data? No, it's not necessary. It's ultimately what it comes down to is not your degree or education, right? What comes down to is how much passionate you are about the data field and you can contribute. I personally did my master's partly to come to US at that time after I graduated from bachelor's, right? If given a choice and if I didn't have to come to US, I might have worked in the real corporate world after doing my bachelor's, gained understanding of what I like, what I don't like, and then understood what I want to specialize further into. So no, doing masters is absolutely not necessary to get jobs in data field. Next one, Vishrut Navaria. So you said that hiring from India at first there were performance issues, but after that previously hired employees suggest other good employees. So is it good thing or not? Means it is good for company performance, but if someone don't have networking and is skilled, then it will be difficult for him, right? Because the first job priority given to who are close to that previous employees. Um, Not necessarily. I think because we were offshore and we didn't have like that enough network built into Indian uh, workforce, right? That's where the trouble I experienced or we experienced particularly. During that process we all ended up partnering with an agency who would vet out uh, candidates, do certain screening and testing before they pass those candidate lists to us. Plus we are on-site folks there, build a very good rigorous interview process, like group discussions and certain tests and interviews and all that helped us getting better candidates. And and by no means I mean candidates are bad or have performance issues, right? Maybe they are in the wrong job, right? Their passion is something else and they are doing a wrong job, right? Or our expectation was not aligned between what the job requires versus what the candidate is supposed to do. So many times it's that disconnect or lack of communication or clarity in that process. Uh, that's all I would say. I mean, it's not necessary for someone to have a networking and then like get the job from a prior employee. It was true in our experience, particularly because we were just growing into that market, but it doesn't apply to all the companies that you are applying for. Building network definitely helps, right? So reaching out and building connection with your faculties or your alumni or other friends who are working at other companies, that's always helpful. So there's a networking aspect that's always helpful, but not in the same sense that you ask the question is it necessary to have somebody like a previous employee recommend you for the next. But yes, I would add to that. I mean, a lot of good candidates we got was from the referrals, and that's the general trend even here in US, right? Keeping aside just the offshore like Indian recruitment, we have hard time recruiting good candidates going through interview process, right? How rigorous interview process you would build, right? You have 1 hour, 4 hours, or 8 hours of interviews. You're not going to find out who the person is during that 8 hours, right? You really need to know once they you know them better. So that's where referrals are important, where the referral says that, yeah, I've worked with this person for a long period of time and they bring this strength or opportunities that would be better fitted for the positions. So that's where referrals are very important. And we got fortunate, like eventually in that Indian hiring scenario where we got good reference from the previous employees. Nihir, is data pre-processing the most important step in a data scientist role, or is it data extraction? What technologies are currently used in data extraction part? Good question. Data pre-processing and data processing is very important in the data scientist role. Yes. Without that, like I said, data scientists are very frustrated because 80% of the time they are spending is in the crunching the data, organizing the data, cleaning the data, instead of writing this models and for the business. So it's very important. Yes. So red flag if you go to certain company and questions to ask saying like, hey, if I'm applying for data scientist role, do you have a data engineering team who is organizing the data, or am I supposed to do that? And if you're really interested in doing the data science work and they don't have data engineering, that's a red flag, because then you may have to do the data engineering part as well. If you're interested in data engineering, then great. That's the role, that's the opportunity out there to do that. Um, Vishruth Navadia, thank you, sir. I have read one article that have written most companies' jobs are not publicly available. It is private hiring by referral. Oh, that was a follow up to my answer. Yeah. So it's true. I mean, it always helps to get into company via referral, where your resume is not one of the dozens or hundreds resumes screened by recruiters and filtered out at that point. If you can get a direct touch with the hiring manager who is looking at your resume, you have a more probability of getting an interview call. You know. So yes, it's always helpful, and many jobs before they are put out there in the general like public posting sites and all, you may not be able to find it, or there may be certain roles. If you have referral, they may be flexible to identify different role, because many times job descriptions are posted, but if you have more than one open positions, hiring manager, if he is a really good smart hiring manager, they want to build diversified team, right? They don't want to hire 5 engineers who are the same looking at each other. They want to diversify them when somebody is specializing in something and the other person in something different. And that's how you kind of grow faster.
Thank you, sir. I guess that's all for our session. So here we come to the end of this event. I on behalf of entire CSI team, first of all, spread my most sincere thanks to Nachiket sir, who agreed to a session and gave his valuable time from his busy schedule to grace this meeting and share his knowledge and experience. Further, big thanks to Professor Ustad Shah, for providing us with the required support, guidance, and mentorship. Last but not least, I would like to extend my gratitude to all the participants for making to this event a big success. We hope you have gained some knowledge from event. We would like you to end with a spot request to fill up the feedback form and help us improve for the future. And the link for the same is in the chat box. Also follow us on our Instagram handles at the CSI underscore DD to follow to stay tuned for upcoming session and latest updates. Here we officially end our second episode of the series Achievers on the Line. Similar episodes will be continued throughout this month. Stay tuned. Have a great day, everyone. And also thanks,
Awesome.
Nachiket sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It was good experience. A lot of good questions from everyone. With smart crowd here. Keep it up. Good luck for your career, and great job, Niken and Namsuk.
Thank
Great
you, sir.
job organizing this and being a good moderator. Great job. Keep it up.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
very much, sir.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye, sir.
Bye, sir.
Have a nice weekend. Yeah.
Have a great